What happens when a Hollywood star, known for his charisma and philosophical outlook on life, faces off against a host who knows no bounds in her provocations? This moment on The View went down in television history as one of the most intense and emotional confrontations. No one in the studio, either the audience, the producers, nor even Joy Behar herself, was prepared for what happened next. Matthew McConaughey, the man with Texan charm and deep convictions, came to the show to promote his new film. But what started as a routine interview quickly turned into a battle of principles, dignity, and humanity. The View studio buzzed with anticipation. Bright spotlights bathed the stage in warm light, and the live audience, mostly women, hummed with excitement as the next guest was announced. Ladies, get ready! Today, we're joined by the Oscar-winning actor, Mr. All right, Matthew McConaughey. Whoopi Goldberg exclaimed, and the room erupted in applause. Cameras panned across the crowd, capturing smiles and eager glances. Matthew strolled in with his signature laid-back stride, dressed in a dark blue suit with a slightly unbuttoned shirt and a smile that could melt any heart. He waved to the audience, hugged Whoopi, and shook hands with the other hosts, Sarah Haynes, Sunny Hostin, and finally, Joy Behar. Joy, with her characteristic wry smile, greeted him. Well, Matthew, you look like you just stepped off a Texas ranch. Ready for our ladies' club? The audience laughed, and Matthew responded in his low, melodic voice. Joy, I'm ready for anything you throw at me. Just don't make me sing. The atmosphere was light, almost festive. Matthew settled into his chair, leaning back casually, and began talking about his new film, a drama about fighting for justice in a small American town. This project is special, he said, looking directly into the camera. It's about people who find the strength to stand up for the truth, even when the whole world is against them. The audience listened, rapt, and Sunny Hostin nodded, clearly impressed. But Joy, sitting across from him, held a sheet of notes in her hand, her eyes glinting with anticipation. The conversation flowed smoothly until Joy leaned forward, holding her pen like a dagger. Matthew, you're always so philosophical, she began, a faint mockery in her tone. All these speeches about life as a journey, find your truth. But let's be honest, it's just a nice wrapper to sell movies, right? Do you actually believe all this, or is it just your brand? The studio fell silent. The camera zoomed in on Matthew's face, and for a moment, his smile froze. But he quickly recovered, leaning back with an easy laugh. Joy, you're coming out swinging, aren't you? He said, and the audience chuckled nervously. I believe what I say. Life isn't just Instagram quotes. It's about waking up every day and trying to be better than you were yesterday. My films are just a part of that. Joy didn't back down. She interrupted him, raising an eyebrow. But seriously, Matthew, you play these heroes fighting for justice, but in real life, you steer clear of politics, avoid making bold statements. Don't you think that's a bit hypocritical? Talking about truth but sitting on the sidelines while the world burns? Sarah Haynes shifted uncomfortably in her seat, and Sunny Hostin shot Joy a quick glance, as if pleading with her to stop. The audience hushed, with only a faint whisper audible in the back. Matthew sighed, his fingers tapping lightly on the armrest. Joy, I'm not sitting on the sidelines, he replied calmly, but a firmness crept into his voice. I do what I think is right. I tell stories that inspire people to think, feel, act. Not everyone needs to shout from a soapbox to make a difference. But Joy had tasted blood. Her eyes narrowed, and her voice grew sharper. Oh, that's convenient, Matthew. Telling stories. But when people are suffering, when real action is needed, you head back to Texas and meditate in your trailer, don't you? Or is that just another role, deep-thinking cowboy? The audience gasped. Cameras caught a close-up of Sarah Haynes, who pursed her lips, clearly unsure how to defuse the situation. Whoopi Goldberg tried to intervene. All right, Joy, let's give Matthew a chance to talk about the film. But Joy waved her off, her eyes locked on McConaughey. No, Whoopi, I want to hear what he has to say. You don't mind an honest conversation, do you, Matthew? Matthew clenched his jaw, and for a moment, His eyes flashed. But he kept his cool, his voice steady. Joy, I don't mind honesty. But honesty isn't the same as throwing accusations for the sake of a show. You want to know who I am? I'm a guy trying to live by my principles. And one of those is not letting others define how I should change the world. The audience erupted in applause, but Joy wasn't fazed. Oh, that's nicely said, she shot back, her voice dripping with sarcasm. But let's face it. You're a rich Hollywood star playing heroes, but in real life, you avoid the mess. For example, why haven't you ever spoken out about Texas issues? Guns, women's rights? You're a Texan, Matthew, or is that just part of your image? The silence in the studio became oppressive. Even the hum of the cameras seemed louder. Producers backstage exchanged panicked glances, one of them grabbing a headset and whispering urgently into it. Camera operators scrambled to capture every angle. The audience was divided. Some nodded at Joy's words, others looked at Matthew with sympathy. A few had already pulled out their phones, sensing a viral moment in the making. Matthew leaned forward, his gaze direct and unyielding. Joy, you want to talk about Texas? Fine. I grew up there. I know what struggle is, what real life is. But I'm not here to give you sound bites you can tear apart. You want to know what I do for the world? I support schools, I help communities, I tell stories that make people think. And what do you do, Joy, besides sitting here throwing accusations? The room exploded. Some clapped, others gasped, and a woman in the front row covered her face, as if unable to believe what was unfolding. Sarah Haynes tried to say something, but her words were drowned out by the noise. Joy, however, didn't look rattled. She leaned back, folding her arms, her smile widening. Oh, Matthew, you're good at this. But I'm not done yet. The View studio was on the verge of an explosion. After a sharp exchange of words between Matthew McConaughey and Joy Behar, the air in the room grew thick with tension. The cameras hummed, darting between Matthew's face, his eyes burning with quiet resolve, and Joy, who sat with a predatory confidence. The audience, torn between shock and awe, held its breath, waiting for the next blow. Backstage, producers exchanged frantic signals, one of them whispering into a headset. This is either genius or a disaster. Joy Behar, sensing the moment was hers, leaned in closer, her voice quieter but laced with venom. Matthew, you say you help communities, support schools. But let's be real. She paused for effect. It's just PR, isn't it? You do it to look like the good guy, then go back to your lavish Hollywood life. How can you talk about real life when you don't even live in the real world? The audience gasped. A few people in the back rows began whispering, and one woman pulled out her phone to record a close-up of McConaughey's reaction. Sarah Haynes fidgeted nervously, her hands gripping the edge of the table as if trying to hold herself back from intervening. Whoopi Goldberg, usually unflappable, shot Joy a sharp look, but Joy ignored everyone, her focus locked on Matthew. Matthew took a slow breath, his fingers tightening on the armrest until his knuckles whitened. But his voice remained calm, almost meditative. Joy, you love throwing words around, don't you? He said, a hint of irony creeping into his tone. You think you know me because you've seen a couple of headlines? I grew up in a small town where people work their tails off to survive. I know what real life is. And I'm not sitting in a studio tossing accusations for ratings. The audience erupted in applause, but Joy didn't flinch. She leaned back, crossing her arms, her smile growing more sardonic. Oh, please, Matthew. You play the simple Texas guy role, but everyone knows you live in a multimillion-dollar mansion. You want us to believe you're one of us? Then why don't you take a stand on real issues? Like, why stay silent on the climate crisis when your Texas is drowning in floods and burning in wildfires? The studio froze. Even the hum of the cameras seemed louder in the oppressive silence. Sunny Hostin opened her mouth to say something but stopped, seeing Matthew slowly rise from his chair. His movements were deliberate, heavy with purpose, as if he were about to say something that would change everything. The audience stilled, and a producer backstage waved at an operator to zoom in for a close-up. Matthew turned to Joy, his eyes blazing but his voice steady. like a whisper before a storm. Joy, you want to know why I don't shout about every issue on every corner? Because I believe in actions, not loud words. I support people fighting floods, I help communities that have lost everything. But I don't do it for the cameras. I don't do it so you or anyone else can check off my good deeds list. He paused, scanning the audience, his voice growing deeper, more resonant. You accuse me of dodging problems? Let me tell you what the real problem is. People who use their platforms to tear others down instead of lifting them up. You sit here, throwing accusations to get your 5 minutes of fame. But what are you doing to change the world, Joy? Besides tearing people apart on camera? The room exploded. Applause roared, louder and more intense than before. Some stood, cheering, while others sat in stunned silence. Joy, for the first time that episode, looked rattled. Her smile vanished, and she grabbed her notes, as if searching for a comeback. Whoopi Goldberg jumped in. All right, let's take a break. We'll be back after the commercial. But Matthew raised a hand, stopping her. I'm not done, Whoopi, he said, his voice carrying quiet power. He turned to the audience, to the cameras, speaking directly to the viewers. I'm not perfect. I'm just a guy trying to live by my principles. And one of those is respect. Respect for myself, for others, for the truth. If you want to change the world, start with respect. Not criticism, not humiliation, but respect. And if that doesn't fit someone's ratings, maybe the problem isn't me. He turned back to Joy, his gaze direct and unyielding. Thanks for the invite, Joy. But I don't play games for the show. With that, he removed his microphone, placed it on the table, and walked off the stage. His steps, confident, measured, echoed with the click of his boots on the wooden floor, ringing through the studio like gunshots. The studio descended into chaos. The audience split. Some gave a standing ovation, shouting words of support, while others whispered, shocked by the dramatic turn. Cameras scrambled to capture every moment. Joy, mouth agape, Sunny hiding her face in her hands, and Sarah, looking like she wanted to sink through the floor. Producers backstage shouted into headsets, one of them rushing onto the set, trying to signal the operators to cut to commercial. Joy finally recovered and tried to regain control. Well, that was dramatic, she said, forcing a smile. But this is The View, and we love honest conversations, right? Her words were met with mixed reactions. Some clapped, others booed. Whoopi quickly took over. All right, we're going to commercial, but we'll be back to discuss this unforgettable interview. As the show cut to a break, the studio buzzed with emotion. Audience members pulled out their phones, uploading videos of the moment to social media. The hashtag McConaughey vs. Behar was already trending on Twitter, and clips of Matthew's speech spread like wildfire. This moment on The View went viral before the episode even ended. Matthew McConaughey's speech was viewed by millions, and social media was divided. Some criticized Joy Behar for crossing the line, calling her provocations cruel and unnecessary. Others argued she had the right to ask tough questions, as stars should be held accountable for their actions. Matthew's reputation, however, only grew stronger. He was hailed as a man of principle who stood up for his dignity in the face of unfair accusations. The media buzzed with headlines. McConaughey walks off The View after epic speech, Joy Behar versus Matthew. Who won this battle? Discussions online raged for weeks, and Matthew remained silent, letting his words speak for him. What do you think of this conflict? Did Matthew do the right thing by walking off? Did Joy have the right to ask those questions? Who was in the right? Share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to catch more stories like this.